I woke up in a hospital room I didn't recognize, with a sharp pain in my chest and a silence that felt wrong. My arms felt heavy. My throat was dry. The first thing I did was reach for my stomach. It was flat. Panic hit me so hard I tried to sit up and immediately screamed. A nurse rushed in, pressing me gently back down, her voice calm but urgent. "Easy. You've been through a lot." "My baby," I croaked. "Where is my baby?" She hesitated. Just for half a second. But that pause told me everything. "She's alive," the nurse said quickly. "She's in the NICU. She was delivered early during emergency surgery." Relief crashed over me, followed immediately by something colder. "Who's with her?" The nurse looked at the chart in her hand, then back at me. "She's being cared for by staff right now." Staff. Not my parents. Not my family. Not even my mother, who lived 20 minutes from this hospital. Because, while I was unconscious, with a punctured lung, and broken ribs after a car accident, my newborn daughter was being watched by strangers. And my mother was at a casino. That wasn't even the worst part. For 9 years, I had secretly sent my parents $4,500 every single month. No contracts. No questions. No conditions. Almost $500,000 in total. Money I never talked about. Money I never got thanked for. And the night I nearly died, the night my child was born, fighting to breathe, my mother told my husband, she always has these emergencies. 3 hours after I canceled every transfer for the first time in nearly a decade, my grandfather walked into my hospital room carrying a thick folder. What he said next changed everything. Before I tell you what happened next, if you enjoy stories about standing up for yourself and karma doing its job, please hit like and subscribe. But only if you genuinely connect with this story. And drop a comment below. What city are you watching from? And what time is it there right now? Now let me take you back 9 years, to the moment this all began. I was 25 years old, fresh out of college, sitting alone in my tiny apartment when my first real paycheck hit my bank account. I remember staring at the number like it was proof that I'd finally made it. I wasn't rich, but I was independent. For the first time in my life, I felt safe. Then my phone rang. "Paige," my mother said, her voice already breaking. "It's your father." My heart dropped. What happened? He had a small stroke. He's stable, but honey, we don't have good insurance. The medical bills are already coming in, and we're behind on the mortgage. They're talking about foreclosure. I remember gripping the edge of my kitchen counter so hard, my knuckles turned white. I didn't ask for proof. I didn't ask for paperwork. I didn't even pause long enough to breathe. "How much do you need?" She sniffed. "I hate asking you this. You just started working. But you're the only one who can save this family." We settled on $2,000 a month. I set up the automatic transfer that same night. Just before hanging up, she added one more thing, her voice suddenly firm. "Don't tell your father. He'd be ashamed. This stays between us." I agreed. Of course I did. What kind of daughter wouldn't? She never said thank you. Not that night. Not ever. Instead, she said, "This is what daughters do." 3 days later, I was scrolling through social media when I saw my sister Megan's post. She was smiling, holding up a designer bag, tagged at a high-end mall. The caption read, "Best mom ever." I stared at that photo for a long time, my stomach tight, my finger hovering over the call button. I almost asked my mother about it. Almost. Then I told myself I was being dramatic. Maybe the bag was a gift. Maybe it was on sale. Maybe I was selfish for even questioning it. That was the first lie I told myself. And it wouldn't be the last. At the time, I had no idea that this single decision, that first yes, would cost me 9 years of my life. And nearly everything I thought family was supposed to be. At first, the money felt temporary. $2,000 a month sounded manageable if I treated it like an emergency expense. Something that would end once my father recovered and things stabilized. That's what I told myself every time. I checked my bank balance and saw the transfer go through. The first month passed quietly. No update on my dad's condition. No thank you text. No reassurance that things were improving. Just silence. I finally called my mom to check in. "How's Dad doing?" I asked. "Oh, you know your father," she said. Stubborn as ever. "The doctors say stress is dangerous for him, so we're trying not to upset him." That's when she said it again. "I'm so glad I can count on you." Megan just wouldn't understand this kind of responsibility. Something about that sentence settled uncomfortably in my chest. Not enough to alarm me, but enough to notice. Megan was 3 years younger than me, lived at home, and had never held a job longer than a few months. She was sensitive, my mom always said, creative, fragile. I was reliable, practical, the one who didn't complain. The second month, the amount didn't change, but the tone did. "The mortgage company is threatening legal action," my mom said over the phone, sounding exhausted. "I didn't want to worry you, but things are worse than we thought." I skipped dinner that night and adjusted my budget. I told myself it was temporary. By the third month, the transfer increased by $500. "I hate to ask," she said, though her voice no longer sounded hesitant, "but the medication your father needs isn't fully covered. You understand, right?" I did understand. Or at least, I thought I did. I told myself this was what families did for each other. You stepped up when no one else could. I didn't notice when the secrecy stopped feeling protective and started feeling isolating. Every time I tried to bring up an end date, my mom brushed it aside. "Let's get through this month first," she'd say. Or, "We'll talk about it after the next doctor's appointment." There was always a next appointment. 6 months in, I stopped mentioning the transfers to anyone at all. Not friends. Not coworkers. Not even my then boyfriend, Daniel. It felt private, heavy, like something I was carrying alone on purpose. The first real red flag came at Christmas. I went home for the holidays, bringing groceries, gifts, and a quiet sense of pride that I was helping keep everything together. The house looked the same, but there were small changes I couldn't quite explain at first. New curtains, a larger television, a fancy coffee machine on the counter. "Did you get a bonus?" I asked casually. My mom smiled. "Just being smart with money." Megan spent the entire evening showing off a new phone, laughing about plans to travel in the summer. When I mentioned my work promotion in passing, my mom nodded distractedly and changed the subject. That night, lying in my childhood bedroom, I stared at the ceiling and felt something twist inside me. I pushed it away. "You're tired," I told myself. "You're overthinking." By the end of the first year, the transfers were automatic. I didn't even look at them anymore. They were just part of my life, like rent or utilities. Except this bill never came with a statement. No explanation. One afternoon, almost a year after that first phone call, my mom added something new. "Megan's thinking of taking an online course," she said. "Marketing or something?" She finally found her passion. "How much is it?" I asked carefully. "Only another $1,000 a month?" "Just for a while." I hesitated. Long enough for her to notice. There was a sigh on the other end. Of the line, heavy, disappointed. "I thought you cared about this family," she said softly. I guess I was wrong. The guilt hit instantly, sharp and familiar. "I'll make it work," I said. That night, I canceled my gym membership. I stopped eating out. I started saying no to things that made me feel alive. And yes to things that made me feel responsible. The money went up. My questions stopped. And somewhere along the way, I stopped asking myself why I was the only one holding everything together, and started believing that if I ever let go, everything would fall apart. By the third year, the number had stopped surprising me. What did surprise me was how easily my life began to shrink around it. The transfers went up again, quietly this time. There was no big explanation, no dramatic phone call. Just a casual mention from my mom one afternoon. That expenses had increased repairs, prescriptions, unexpected things. I nodded into the phone and said, okay, like it was nothing. At work, I was doing well. Better than well. I'd earned another promotion. My salary finally reaching a place where I could breathe a little. But instead of breathing, I tightened everything. I learned how to stretch groceries. I stopped replacing clothes unless they were falling apart. I took freelance projects on weekends, telling myself it was just until things stabilized. They never did. Social media became something I checked with a knot in my stomach. Megan's posts started appearing more often. Beach photos, new outfits, brunches tagged at places I'd only heard coworkers talk about. Every time there was a caption thanking Mom for always believing in me. I stopped liking the posts. Once I tried to joke about it. Looks like Megan's doing pretty well, I said during a phone call. Oh, honey, my mom replied, almost amused. You know, influencers have to keep up appearances. Don't read into it. So, I didn't. Or rather, I told myself I didn't. Year 4 was when Daniel noticed something was wrong. We'd been dating for a while by then. Serious enough that he spent weekends at my place. One evening, he sat across from me at my small kitchen table while I sorted bills. You're always stressed about money, he said gently. But you make more than most people I know. Where is it all going? I froze, a stack of envelopes in my hand. Just responsibilities, I said. Family stuff. He didn't push. He never did. But his eyes stayed on me. Thoughtful, concerned. That Thanksgiving, we visited my parents together for the first time. I watched the interaction through new eyes. Like I was seeing a familiar movie from a different angle. My mom spent 40 minutes talking about Megan's follower count. Her brand deals. Her potential. She asked Daniel questions about his job. Complimented his ambition, laughed easily. She never asked me how I was. When we got back in the car, Daniel didn't start the engine right away. Have you noticed, he asked slowly, that your mom never asks how you're doing? I laughed too quickly. She's just distracted. She didn't mention your promotion once, he said. You worked really hard for that. I didn't have an answer. What I did have was a memory that surfaced uninvited. 4 years earlier, my grandfather had called me out of the blue. Grandpa Harold, the one my mom always said was distant. Too busy, not really interested in family. That day, his voice had been soft, careful. Paige, he asked, are you happy? The question caught me off guard. Of course, I said automatically. There was a pause. Is your mother good to you? I remember looking around my apartment. At the bare walls, the secondhand couch. The life I'd carefully minimized. Yes, I said again. Everything's fine. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, if that ever changes, you call me. Promise me. I promised. Then I hung up and pushed the conversation out of my mind. Just like I pushed everything else away. That didn't fit the story I was telling myself. By year 5, the amount hit $4,500 a month. The house needs work, my mom said. Your father's health isn't getting better. You know how expensive his medications are? I didn't question it. I didn't ask for details. I just adjusted again. More freelance work. Fewer nights out. Delayed plans with Daniel about buying a place together. When? He asked one night, lying beside me in the dark. Soon, I said. I just need to save a little more. He didn't argue. But the silence that followed felt heavy. Somewhere deep down, a thought began to form. Quiet but persistent. What if this never ends? I ignored it. I had gotten very good at that. Because facing that question meant facing another one I wasn't ready for yet. What if I wasn't helping my family? What if I was being used? The pressure didn't come all at once. It crept in through small moments. The kind you could easily dismiss if you weren't paying attention. Daniel started talking seriously about the future around year 6. Not hypothetically. Not someday. He talked about neighborhoods we liked. About how much we'd need for a down payment. About timing. "I'm not in a rush," he said one evening as we walked back to my apartment. "But I need to know we're moving towards something." "I know," I said. "We are." But every time I opened my savings app, the numbers told a different story. No matter how much I earned, it never seemed to grow. It hovered, stalled, like I was running uphill on loose gravel. That was the first time I tried to set a boundary. I called my mom on a Tuesday night, rehearsed and careful. "I just wanted to talk about the transfers," I said. "Daniel and I are thinking about buying a place together. Maybe we could lower it for a bit." The silence on the line stretched longer than usual. "Lower it?" she repeated, her voice suddenly flat. "Paige, do you have any idea what your father's medications cost?" "I'm not saying stop," I said quickly. "Just maybe adjust. Temporarily." Her breath came sharp through the phone. "After everything we've sacrificed for you?" There it was. The phrase that always worked. "You wouldn't even have gone to college if we hadn't supported you." She continued. "And now when we actually need you, you're thinking about yourself." The words hit harder than I expected. Shame spread fast and familiar. "I'm sorry," I said. "I didn't mean it like that." "I just didn't raise you to be selfish," she replied. Then, softer, "We'll talk about this later." The line went dead. I stared at my phone for a long time after that, my chest tight. Somewhere in the apartment, the dishwasher beeped, announcing it was done. Life moving forward while I stayed stuck. That night, Daniel found me sitting on the edge of the bed. Still dressed, staring at nothing. "What happened?" he asked. I shook my head. "Nothing. I'm just tired." It wasn't true, but it was easier than explaining something I barely understood myself. A few weeks later, I noticed something that finally broke through my denial. My mom posted photos from a weekend spa trip. Matching robes. Smiling faces. A caption about self-care and well-earned rest. It was posted 3 days after she'd told. Me, my dad's prescriptions were bleeding them dry. I stared at the photo until my eyes burned. When Daniel came home and found me crying in the dark, I blamed hormones. Stress. Work. Another lie. By the time I was 7 months pregnant, exhaustion was my baseline. I still hadn't reduced the transfers. I still hadn't told my mom no. But something inside me was changing. One evening, Daniel sat me down at the dining table with his laptop open. A spreadsheet filled the screen. "I need you to look at this," he said gently. He'd tracked everything. Every transfer. Every increase. Every excuse. When he totaled it, my chest tightened. $486,000. "That's not counting interest," he said quietly. "Or what you could have earned if this money had stayed with you." I tried to defend it. "They need it." "Do they?" he asked, turning the laptop toward me. "Because your mom just bought new furniture. Megan just got back from Cabo, and somehow your dad's medication costs more than most people's. Mortgages." I had no answer. "I'm not telling you what to do," Daniel continued. "But if you keep doing this, what does our daughter learn?" I swallowed hard. "That her mom is an ATM, you said? That love means giving until there's nothing left." The question settled between us, heavy and unavoidable. "What if I stop?" I whispered. "What if they hate me?" Daniel took my hand. "Then you'll finally know what you're worth to them." I wasn't ready to find out. Not yet. But life doesn't always wait until you're ready. 2 months later, on a rainy Thursday night, the universe made the decision for me. October 17th, Thursday, 9:47 p.m. I remember the exact time because I checked my phone at a red light, just minutes before everything changed. Daniel had texted me, "Drive safe. Love you." I was 36 weeks pregnant, exhausted from staying late at work, already thinking about a hot shower in bed. The rain had been coming down hard all evening, the kind that turns headlights into white streaks and makes the road feel smaller than it is. I was only 3 miles from home. The intersection at Maple and Fifth was familiar, almost comforting. I'd driven through it 1,000 times. The light was green. Green means go. Green means safe. I never saw the truck. 1 second I was easing forward, foot steady on the gas. And the next there was a sound I still hear in my sleep. Metal screaming against metal. Glass exploding. The world jerking violently to the left. The impact hit my chest like a hammer. The airbag deployed with a force that knocked the breath straight out of me. Pain shot through my ribs, sharp and immediate. Something cracked. Maybe more than one thing. I couldn't breathe. I tried to inhale, and it felt like fire. Panic surged as my hands flew instinctively to my stomach. My baby. She was still there. Still round? But I couldn't feel her move. Or maybe I couldn't feel anything except pain. The truck that hit me had run the red light. I'd learn that later. At the time, all I knew was the sound of rain unbroken, glass, and the distant wail of sirens growing louder. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Flashlights cut through the dark. Faces hovered above me, blurred by rain and shock. "She's pregnant," someone said urgently. "We need to get her out now." I tried to speak. Tried to say her name. Tried to say, "Save her first." But my chest seized and no sound came out. Hands worked quickly, cutting the seatbelt, stabilizing my neck. Every movement sent a new wave of pain through my body. My vision pulsed in and out like a faulty light. As they lifted me onto the stretcher, my fingers curled again over my stomach. "Please," I thought. "Not her. Take me if you have to, but not her." The inside of the ambulance was bright and loud. Monitors beeping. Voices overlapping. Someone pressed an oxygen mask over my face, telling me to breathe. Just breathe. I tried. I really did. But my lungs wouldn't cooperate. The last clear thing I remember is a paramedic leaning over me. He looked young. Too young to be doing this? His eyes were focused, but I could see fear there too. "Stay with me," he said. "You're doing great. Stay with me." The ceiling lights blurred into streaks as the ambulance sped forward. My body felt heavy, distant, like it no longer belonged to me. My thoughts narrowed to one thing. My baby. My baby. My baby. Then, even that started to slip. The pain dulled, replaced by a strange floating sensation. The sounds around me faded, like someone slowly turning down the volume on the world. I wondered if this was what people meant when they said time slowed down. Or if this was just the moment before everything went dark. Somewhere far away, someone said my name. "Paige." I tried to answer. I tried to hold on. But my eyes closed anyway. I wouldn't wake up for 14 hours. And when I did, I would learn that while surgeons fought to save my life and deliver my daughter, while she was rushed to the NICU fighting to breathe on her own, my husband was hundreds of miles away. And my mother, who lived 20 minutes from the hospital, had made a choice that would finally, irrevocably show me exactly who she was. I woke up to fluorescent lights and the steady, mechanical rhythm of a monitor beeping somewhere near my head. My mouth was dry, my chest felt like it had been split open, and there was a pressure in my throat that made panic rise instantly. I tried to move. Pain exploded through my ribs. A nurse appeared at my side, calm hands pressing gently on my shoulder. "Easy. You're in the ICU. You've been through major surgery." My eyes flew open wider as memory crashed back in pieces. The rain, the impact, the darkness. "My baby," I tried to say, but my voice came out rough and weak. "Where is she?" The nurse leaned closer so I could see her clearly. Your daughter is alive. She's in the NICU. She's small, but she's strong. Tears spilled down my temples before I could stop them. Relief hit so hard it left me shaking. An hour later, once the breathing tube was removed and I could speak properly, the questions came rushing out. Where's my husband? He's on a flight, the nurse said. He should land in a couple of hours. My chest tightened again. Daniel had been in Seattle for work. I knew that. I'd known it when I left the office that night. My mother? I asked. The nurse hesitated. That hesitation felt worse than bad news. No family has come yet, she said carefully. The words settled over me like a weight. No family, not my parents, not my sister, no one. I asked for my phone. They'd saved it from the wreck. The screen cracked, but usable. My hands shook as I unlocked it. No missed calls. No texts. But there was a notification. An Instagram post from Megan, timestamped 3 hours earlier. A selfie on a cruise ship deck, sunglasses on, a drink in her hand. The caption read, "Living my best life." I stared at the screen until it blurred, then set the phone face down on my chest. Can I hire someone? I asked suddenly. A nurse. Someone to stay with my daughter until my husband gets here. The attending nodded. We can arrange that. 40 minutes later, a woman in her mid-40s walked into my room. Warm eyes, confident posture. I'm Maggie, she said. I'll be staying with your daughter tonight. As she scanned my chart, she paused. Reynolds, she said slowly. Paige Reynolds. Yes. She studied my face for a moment. Something like recognition passing over her expression. He used to talk about you. My heart skipped. Your grandfather, she said. Harold. I blinked. You know my grandfather? She smiled faintly. I took care of your grandmother years ago. He still checks in sometimes. He said his biggest regret was not speaking up sooner. The words landed softly, but carried weight. Before Maggie left for the NICU, she wrote something on a notepad and placed it beside my bed. A phone number. Just in case, she said. After she left, the room felt unbearably quiet. I lay there, listening to the machines, every breath sending pain through my ribs. My mind felt sharper than it had in years. I opened my banking app. The transaction history loaded slowly. Line after line of transfers stretching back through time. 9 years. Every month. $4,500. Reliable. Automatic. Not a single thank you message attached to any of it. Just money flowing out. My finger hovered over the settings. I heard my mother's voice in my head. This is what daughters do. Then another thought followed, clear and steady. What do mothers do? They show up. I tapped the screen. Manage automatic transfers. Cancel. Are you sure? Yes. The screen refreshed. The line disappeared. I exhaled, a deep, careful breath that had nothing to do with my lungs. For the first time in nearly a decade, something inside me loosened. 3 hours later, the door to my hospital room opened quietly. A tall man with silver hair stepped inside, carrying a thick folder under his arm. My grandfather had arrived, and I knew before he even spoke that nothing in my life was ever going to be the same again. My grandfather closed the door behind him gently, like he didn't want to disturb the moment. He looked exactly the way I remembered. Tall, even at his age, his silver hair neatly combed. His posture straight from decades of discipline. But his eyes gave him away. They were wet, focused entirely on me. Paige, he said, his voice breaking on my name. My girl. I tried to sit up, immediately regretted it. He crossed the room in 3 long steps and took my hand. The one without the 4. His grip was warm, solid, real. I'm here, he said quietly. I'm so sorry it took me this long. Something inside me cracked open. I cried harder than I had since waking up, the kind of crying that comes from being held together for too long. He didn't rush me. He just stayed, his thumb moving slowly over my knuckles. I thought you didn't want to see me, I managed finally. Mom always said you were busy, that you didn't really do family visits anymore. His jaw tightened. She told me the same thing about you. We looked at each other. The space between us suddenly filled with awe. The years that had been taken from both of us. Daniel called me tonight, Grandpa said. He told me what happened. What your mother said when he begged her to come. Shame flickered through me. I didn't mean for him to involve you. You didn't, he said firmly. And you don't apologize for this? You have nothing to apologize for. He set the folder on the tray table and opened it. Inside were printed pages, neatly stacked. Bank statements. My bank statements. Every transfer. Every date. Every amount. 9 years laid out in black and white. I've been aware of the money for some time, he said quietly. I have my ways. I stared at the pages, my chest tight. If you knew. Why didn't you say anything? He was silent for a long moment before answering. Because I made the same mistake once before. I saw problems in my family and stayed quiet, hoping they'd fix themselves. Your grandmother died before I could make things right. He met my eyes. I thought if I gave your mother enough rope, she might choose to do better. I was wrong. He tapped the papers lightly. She used that rope to tie you down for 9 years. My throat burned. She told people I never helped, I said. Didn't she? His expression hardened. Yes. She told the family you were selfish. That you refused to contribute to your father's medical bills. She stood in my living room last Christmas and said it. My mouth fell open. But I paid for everything. I know, he said. That's why I started digging. He pulled out another document. An email chain. My mother's name at the top. 3 years ago, she came to me, he continued. She asked me to update my will. She wanted everything left to your sister. The room seemed to tilt. What? She said you had a successful career and a husband who could take care of you. He said that Megan needed it more. My stomach churned. I didn't change the will, Grandpa said. Not then. I wanted to see what she would do next. Tonight, she answered that question. I swallowed. What happens now? He leaned closer, lowering his voice. Now there are consequences. Before I could ask what that meant, the door opened again. My father stood in the doorway. He looked smaller than I remembered, older. His eyes were red. His shoulders slumped like he'd been carrying something heavy for too long. I couldn't stay quiet anymore, he said hoarsely. I called him. I told him everything. I stared at him, a mix of anger and sadness rising in my chest. Before either of us could speak, footsteps approached again. Perfume filled the air. My mother walked in. Her hair was perfectly styled. Makeup flawless. Silk blouse pressed smooth. She looked like someone arriving at a dinner party, not a hospital room. Her eyes went straight to my grandfather. And in that moment, I saw it. She hadn't come because she was worried about me. She'd come because she knew the truth was finally catching up to her. My mother froze just inside the doorway, her eyes darting from my grandfather to my father, then finally landing on me. For a split second, something unreadable crossed her face. Then she switched on the expression I knew too well. Concern, soft panic. Perfectly timed. Oh my God, she said, rushing toward the bed. Paige, my baby. I came as soon as I heard. I glanced at the clock on the wall. The accident had happened at 9:47 p.m. My grandfather spoke before I could. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath it. You came 6 hours later, Linda. Where were you? Her hand hovered in the air, just short of touching mine. Traffic was terrible, she said quickly. I couldn't get away. You were at the Desert Rose Casino, my father said quietly. The room went still. Her face drained of color, then flushed red. "How dare you track me?" she snapped. "I'm allowed to have a night out with friends." "While your daughter was in surgery," Grandpa said. "While your granddaughter was born premature and placed in the NICU." She turned to me then, her eyes pleading. "Paige, honey, you understand?" I didn't know how serious it was. Daniel exaggerates. He always has. I felt something settle inside me. A strange calm. "Stop," I said. The word surprised all of us. Even me. "I know exactly what you said," I continued. "You told Daniel I always have emergencies. You told him this was his responsibility." Her mouth opened, then closed. My father stepped forward, his hands shaking. "I heard you laugh about it afterward," he said. "You said she'd figure it out. She always does. That did it." The performance cracked. "This is ridiculous," my mother snapped. "That money was offered. I never forced her." Grandpa picked up the folder and held it out. 9 years. $486,000. Her breath caught. "You told this family she never helped," he went on. "You told me she was selfish. You tried to cut her out of my will while she was paying your bills." She looked around the room, searching for an ally. There were none. "You knew?" Grandpa said to my father. "And you said nothing." My father bowed his head. "I was afraid. But I'm done being quiet." My mother's shock turned to fury. "You're choosing her over me?" "I'm choosing what's right," he said. "For the first time in 30 years. Grandpa turned back to her. "I'm meeting with my attorney tomorrow. I'm changing my will." The words hit her like a physical blow. "You can't," she whispered. "Megan needs that money." "Megan is an adult," Grandpa replied. "And need is not the same as entitlement." She spun toward me, desperation flooding her face. "Paige, talk to him. We're family. We can work this out." I looked at her. Really looked. "I've worked it out for 9 years," I said softly. "I'm done." Tears streamed down her face now. Real or not, I couldn't tell. She reached for me again. I pulled my hand back. "Don't ask me to save you," I said. "I can't anymore." The room fell silent. Grandpa closed the folder. "This conversation isn't finished," he said. "But it's over for tonight." My mother stood there for a long moment, her composure shattered. Before turning sharply and walking out, my father followed, pausing only to look back at me with regret etched across his face. As the door closed, Grandpa sat beside me and placed his hand over mine. "This isn't the end," he said quietly. "It's the beginning." And I knew he was right. Because what my mother didn't realize, yet was that the hardest part for her, was still ahead. 4 weeks passed. My ribs healed slowly. My lung reinflated. Emma grew stronger every day, surprising the doctors who had warned us to prepare for a long road. Daniel worked from home so he could be near us. His desk set up in the corner of the living room. His voice calm and steady whenever I needed grounding. And the money stopped leaving my account. The first month without the transfer felt strange. Like reaching for something that wasn't there anymore. 9 years of habit doesn't disappear overnight. I checked my banking app more times than I'd like to admit, half expecting the familiar withdrawal to appear. It never did. Instead, my balance stayed where it was. Quiet, stable. My mother called often. At first, it was angry voicemails. Then tearful ones. Then soft apologetic ones. "Paige, I know I made mistakes," she said in one message. "Please don't punish me forever. Let me meet my granddaughter." Against my better judgment, I agreed to one last chance. Emma's 1-month celebration. Small, controlled. One opportunity to show up. Without conditions. The day of the gathering, everything felt tense beneath the surface. Grandpa arrived first, carrying a stuffed elephant almost as big as Emma. My father came alone. Friends and colleagues filled the room with warmth and normalcy. My mother arrived 45 minutes late. She brought Megan. I hadn't invited her. They moved through the room like nothing had happened, smiling, hugging, performing. My mother played the role of devoted grandmother perfectly, but her eyes kept drifting toward Grandpa, tracking him like a chess opponent. Half an hour in, I stepped into the kitchen for napkins. Megan was there, whispering into her phone. "You need to talk to him today," she said. "I can't live like this. I need that money." I didn't move. I didn't breathe. "I'm working on it," my mother replied softly through the speaker. "Just give me an opening." That was it. Back in the living room, my mother cornered Grandpa near the window. She leaned in close, her voice low and persuasive. What she didn't realize was that earlier, someone had turned on the karaoke system. The microphone on the side table was live. Her words carried clearly through the room. "Megan needs the inheritance more than Paige does," she said. "Paige has a husband, a career. It's only fair." The room went silent. My mother turned, saw the faces, saw the microphone. Too late. I stood up, my legs steady, my voice calm. "For 9 years," I said, "I sent you $4,500 every month. That's $486,000. While you told people I was selfish? While you chose casinos over my newborn?" I looked at her one last time. "I'm done." She left without another word. 2 weeks later, Grandpa called. The will was finalized. 70% placed in trust for Emma, 20% to my father, 10% to my mother and Megan, conditional on 6 months of therapy. Life adjusted quickly without my money. Spa trips stopped. Casino nights ended. Megan got her first real job. My father began setting boundaries. A year later, Grandpa still comes every Sunday. He reads to Emma while Daniel makes coffee. Our house is peaceful. I lost a mother I thought I had. I gained a family that shows up. If you were in my place, would you have given that final chance? Or would you have cut ties the moment she refused to come to the hospital?